Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily dose of salt and light with myself, Nadine Ness. I just got a bombshell. Just realized there's a response from Trump, or Trump did a post on Truth Social. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it. It just came out literally like a few minutes ago. And I'm going to start with that instead. So I'm like kind of shocked, but not shocked. And it's making my wheels kind of spin in my head. And it's probably going to make the same thing happen to you guys. Like I don't know everything he's being told or what he's being informed of, but I know there's a lot of conversations happening. I'm going to cover some of them. I'm going to cover quite a bit. And I know I've talked about the trade war yesterday, but there's just so much development. And I think this is something that's on the top of the minds of most Canadians and most of my listeners. But let me know where you're watching from. Say hi. If you comment and like and stuff, it actually shows up more in the algorithm, and then more people get to see this show. So I'll quickly just go over what Trump just posted on Truth Social and what my thoughts are on it. I might have to change a little bit the setting. Yeah, here you go. I might have to change the setting of, give me 1 second. I just realized I'm missing one program. Here you go. So this was the first. Oh, I don't know what just happened. My screen just changed. Like a background photo. Anyways, let me know if it sounds okay too. I think I'm using the right mic this time. But this is a tweet by Trump. I just realized it wasn't fitting the screen here. Here it is. Justin Trudeau of Canada called me to ask what could be done about the tariffs. I told them that many people have died from fentanyl that came through the borders of Canada and Mexico, and nothing has convinced me that it has stopped. He said that it's gotten better, but I said that's not good enough. The call ended in somewhat friendly manner. He was unable to tell me when the Canadian election is taking place, which made me curious. Like, what's going on here? I then realized he is trying to use this issue to stay in power. Good luck, Justin. This is huge. I then realized he's using this issue to stay in power. And I don't think he's saying that about Justin Trudeau. I think he's saying that about the Liberal Party. And then he added, so this was the first one. Then he added this tweet, and this is on Truth Social. For anyone who's interested, I told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada. It's funny, he didn't use Governor Trudeau in the first one, but he's using it in the second one. That he largely caused the problems we have with them because his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the death of many people. So it's interesting. He's basically like showing Canadians, hey, the only reason you're dealing with this issue is because the failed policy of Trudeau and the Liberal Party. So he's probably noticing how many Canadians are getting brainwashed by the Liberal Party right now. I'm gonna go through that in a little bit in a little bit later in the episode, but he's addressing it. Now the thing is, everyone's going to be talking about this. So Canadians who are brainwashed are going to see this and be like, is this true? Is this why the tariffs are like, they might start second guessing the failed policies of they might start second guessing the current narrative that the Liberal Party is sending, and they might start seeing the failed Liberal Party that, or the failed Liberal policies that led to the tariffs to begin with. So let's see. I've got to make this bigger. It's a little bit different when it's on Truth Social than Twitter. So I have to change up the screen. So the title of this episode was here, Trudeau's trade war bluff, fooling Canadians, not Trump. And I wanted to share on I keep saying we don't have the cards. The same way Donald Trump said to Zelensky, you don't have the card. We're in the same position. We don't have the cards to be negotiating the way we have. And yesterday's episode, I was talking about how almost every leader in this country is failing at negotiating properly or at dealing with the situation properly. I'm going to show you what those cards are so that people can grasp why Canada is not in a position to counter tariff and what that's going to mean for us if we do counter tariff the US. But first of all, I want to share which state is our economy? Which state is our GDP? Which state is our capital in Canada? I think a lot of people don't realize how much of a whole we really are. And that's not just because of the tariff. That has nothing to do with the tariff. This is policies over the last generation, probably more importantly, the last 10 years. Someone here made a really, really good graph about it. Richard Diaz. I don't know who he is. Let's see. Where is he from? Anyways, I don't know where he's from. It doesn't say. I don't know why you're saying that, Thomas. I'm brainwashed by fake news. What fake news? You're obviously not paying attention to my show. Thomas says, just came in to say that Nadine's brainwashed by fake news. He's obviously not listening to what I'm saying because fake news is all repeating the exact same thing. I'm not. I'm showing the realities of what we're facing in Canada. So timing is everything. This tariff war is precisely what the federal government needed to distract Canadians from the abysmal economic record, from capital flight, failing investment, and my personal favorite, a collapse in productivity growth. The data speaks for itself. So this is the 5-year GDP growth. This one's productivity growth. The gray one is labor force growth. So if you look, the labor force growth has grown way bigger. The productivity growth has gone down. Now he has a lot of other receipts. So this one is direct investments flow. So direct investment abroad that goes out of Canada into other countries, the red. Not foreign direct investment. And then foreign direct investments into Canada. So look at how many are leaving Canada. And this would be since there was like the dip of COVID. And look how much that's going up. This would have been in the 1990s. Failing private sector investments. So this one is the private sector versus public sector. Or no, this is never mind. This is the US versus Canada. Business investment per capita, Canada versus the US per capita, right here. Housing affordability crisis. House price to income ratio. House price to rent ratio. So the rent is the red. The blue is house price to income ratio. Interesting. Here's more. This one's total population and annual growth rate. So the blue is the regular population. The red is population growth. So we obviously didn't have a baby boom, which means this would reflect all the immigration into Canada. $20-year low in the Canadian dollar. I remember when the Canadian dollar was to par with the US dollar. That was when I first moved um, to Calgary. I remember when I lived in Calgary, the Canadian dollar was to par with the US. And because US prices were lower for cars and stuff, a lot of I knew someone specifically who would go to the US and buy cars and used cars and bring it back and sell it in Canada. Canada's interest payment larger than healthcare spending. Wow. This doesn't show a very good picture of where we are in Canada. 8-year ex-COVID high in unemployment rate. 15-year high in the number of unemployed. So for the last 15 years, we're right here. I remember these were like the crashes before the recessions we had before. Growing budget deficit outside a recession. Look at that. Government, federal government, provincial, and territorial, and local government. Even that I find it seems like it's not just the federal government. The federal government is obviously worse, but the provincial government are also overspending. Lagging real GDP per capita versus our G7 peers. We're right here. That's the US. When you see it in a graph like that, it really shows how bad we're doing. Look, Italy's doing quite well. It's a conservative government. The US is doing good. It's a conservative government. France isn't. Stalling industrial production. Capacity utilization. I don't know what that means. Industrial production is there. I'm just looking at the comments. I hadn't looked at the entire post, but anyways, if you go look at this, Richard Diaz is the one who posted this. Now let's see what else we've got here. Oh, that was the Truth Social that I just showed you guys. So Nicole Arbor, I don't know if you guys follow her. She's a comedian that's Canadian and she does a lot of content. She's on YouTube. Anyway, she's like, I'm a bit confused with this too. Who knows the real answer? And it was, could someone explain to me why Trump is pursuing this trade war, especially with Canada, one of our closest allies? Please be serious. I really want to know. It makes no sense to me. So Nicole Arbor is asking the same thing. But this guy wrote a comment. He says, if Canada and the US had the same population and import levels, Canada would collect 4 times the import fees the US does. Trump's 25% tariff is a start, but to achieve reciprocity, it should be 300%. We are charging them 92.5 billion. They are charging us 370 billion. Does that seem fair? Oh, wait a minute. He says, my calculation above me tweet was wrong. My mistake. Here's the correct information. Understanding Canada-US trade in 2022, the total value of US imports to Canada was 356.5 billion. The total value of Canada import to the US was 436.6 billion. Similar to Europe VAT, Canada has harmonized sales tax, which is rebated to their export, but charged to the imports. In other words, their exports to the US are tax-free, while our imports are taxed at about 10%, HST federal 5%, and provincial tax. Let's say HST is about 10. Canada charged the US about 35.6 billion in HST, or 10%. So that's if he goes based on 10%. Um, now in New Brunswick, it's even higher. I think it's 16%. In Saskatchewan, it's 11%. So this is the same thing that Danielle Smith had talked about when I was at an event in Calgary like a month ago. She talked about this specifically, how when we sell stuff outside to the US, there's no harmonized tax, but when they sell their stuff, so there is already like a predisposed tariff that Canada is charging to US products, which that's like the hidden HST or GST as well. HST here. I think it's HST and GST together, harmonized sales tax. The United States only charged about 34.9 billion on Canada's imports, but that's 34.9 billion was paid by the US consumer at point of sale as a sales tax. See how that works. The US consumers pays the Canadian sale tax on their imports, and the US manufacturers pays the Canadian sales tax upfront going into their country. We pay their sales tax coming and going. Interesting. Canada charged the US about 1 billion in other duties and tariffs on our 2022 imports. The United States charged Canada about 2.9 billion on other duties and tariffs on their 2022 imports. Canada charged the United States 36.5 billion on our 356 billion, so about 10.2%. The United States charged Canada 2.9 billion on their 436 billion, so about 0.7%. So the Canadians have a 9.5 advantage under our current system. So before the tariffs, Canadians have a 9.5% advantage. I don't think a lot of people knew this. So this is what Danielle Smith talked about, like versus Alberta is a bit different because Alberta, the HST and GST is not, they don't have GST. I think they have one of them. It's 5%. In Saskatchewan, it's 11%. If you know the term of what Alberta is, I just know that it's 5%, and ours here in Saskatchewan is 11%. We should apply the same system to Canada that they apply to us. They pay a sales tax equal to their average HST coming into our country. If they charge us only 10% to come in, then we do the same, charge them 10% to come in. Sound fair? And he says, please check my math. So what he's saying is the 10% HST could be different. Yeah, it is different with each provinces. Like New Brunswick's, when I used to live there, it was 16%. Interesting though. I love that he corrected himself. Let's see what else we've got here. This mark, I'm not going to play the whole thing. Actually, I don't want to hear. Already heard it yesterday, but maybe I'll play this one. But he says Canada's GDP is $2 trillion. US GDP is $25 trillion. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT something. What is the US population? Three hundred and 41 million. What is the Canadian population here? What is the Canadian population? Oh, what does it say? What is the Canadian population?
Are you asking about the
Oops.
population of a specific place, like a
Ah,
country or a city? Let me know what you're looking for.
ah. Why is it doing that? What is the Canadian population?
It looks like there might have been
Why
a
is it
glitch in how
talking?
the information was displayed. Were you referring to the odd formatting?
That's so weird that he's talking to me. 41.3. Okay. 41.3. So 341 divided 41. America is 8 times bigger. So if we were to use the GDP and compare it to America, 8 times bigger than $2 trillion would be $16 trillion if we were to average it to the US population. So that gives you a bit of an idea. So, but the US GDP is 25 trillions. 100 billion tariff is peanuts to the US. It'll crush us. I'm just going to see some of the comments here. Give me a second. Okay, so Shelley says Canada at the helm of Trudeau has been attacking Trump the entire team years. It's true. Trudeau is up at his podium yesterday, banging his effeminate chest, saying, "We will win." No, you tyrant, we won't. Here is the math that Trudeau dares not share with Canadian sheep. 19% of GDP exports to the US, 37% of Mexico's GDP is exports to the US. The US's export as a percentage of GDP to both countries combined is 2.7%. The math ain't mathing. It's true. We don't have the cards. Now, let's play this video. I just realized I didn't add the shared screen. Let's do that really quickly. And then I'll switch it up here. Let's listen to some of this. I'm going to try to make it go faster too.
Bogus, completely unjustified, completely false.
The real reason Trudeau says is what Trump's repeatedly said before.
What he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that'll make it easier to annex us.
All this, Trudeau says, as Trump moves America away from its allies and closer to Moscow.
They're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense.
Canada is fighting back, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, including everything from groceries to alcohol to guns, with a promise to increase that number to $155 billion in a few weeks.
President Trump stabbed America's best friend in the back.
Conservatives want any money from the retaliatory tariffs to go towards tax cuts,
with a small sum set aside for targeted relief to workers hardest hit by the trade war.
But the NDP says that doesn't make sense.
If you cut someone's taxes, they have no income. What's the point? I'm talking about getting people the protection in place that they need so they can actually survive.
The Prime
here
Minister was
Singh
once
wanting
saying that
to
this
go
trade war will be
socialist.
tough for Canadians, but his message for Americans is that they will suffer too, and it's because of the decision that their government is making.
Of tariffs, and remember, the Canadian tariffs will be on Canadians. So when the government says 100 billion or 200 billion, that's a tax on Canadians. And then the argument is that somehow going to cause Mr. Trump to change his mind. And it's such a huge economy. We say these amounts are large. $100 billion is a big amount. The U.S. economy is somewhere between 25 and 30 trillion dollars, depending on how you measure GDP, without getting into the weeds. So, $100 billion on a 25 to 30 trillion dollar economy is like finding a loony on the sidewalk and thinking you made it rich. It's statistically insignificant.
But again, Ian, do you think this is just an emotional thing as opposed to maybe the argument you're hearing from Premier Ford, which is that, okay, we're going to turn off the energy? I mean, would that be more effective?
As you can see, I think the retaliatory tariffs are very destructive to ourselves. I don't agree with the Premier when he said there's no other alternative. There's many other alternatives. Getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers, cutting off the electricity is certainly, shall we say, a much more draconian response. And I think it will have a greater impact because it is going to impact on the border states that import electricity. So yes, they will feel it.
The funny part is most people don't know if you cut off the power to the states, it would have a massive collapse, not just in the US, in Canada as well. You can't just shut that off. Let's see what else I got here. I didn't realize I had the video playing in 2 screens. I want to show what else people are saying. So this was a post by Sam Cooper. I'll share the post first and then I'll share the video. So Sam Cooper says here, I honestly don't know if it's a drug war or a trade war. What I do know is the average Canadian has absolutely no idea how penetrated our banks, housing, and institutions are by organized crime, but the US military and the police and intelligence know they are deeply concerned. Is this a pretty long video? No. Okay.
By the cartels. And we think that there are cartel influences in Canada if you look at the lack of progress.
Earlier today, Trudeau also referred to the president as Donald and said that this was a stupid move on the president's part. What's your response to Prime Minister Trudeau on that?
Right. Well, respectfully, this is not a trade war. It's a drug war. And with all of the intelligence that we've been gathering from our intelligence agencies and our investigative people at the FBI and elsewhere, the president is extraordinarily disappointed in the actions the Canadians and Mexicans have taken to fight the drug war. Make no mistake, in 2023, Canada, which claims it's an innocent party, we found increased fentanyl seizures by 2,000% in 2023. And in Mexico, we know that the cartels operate basically without inspection by government or police officials because they're probably very often, especially in some regions, controlled by the cartels. And we think that there are cartel influences in Canada if you look at the lack of progress we've made on the drug war. Make no mistake that more than 100,000 people died from this last year, and the chemicals that are being shipped here are coming from China. And so these people are killing Americans more than the Vietnam War. And when our intelligence agencies look at the actions that they're taking, they feel like they're not enough, that they're not trying hard enough. And that's why this is here.
So this is what was his name? Is it Hassett? There's another video I want to play. I just want to find it. I had it here, but I think I switched the screen. Oh, here it is. This is a really good video
and
too.
10%
that explains the tariff war. I will speed it up a little bit, but not too much.
The most insane trade war has officially begun because Canada, Mexico, and China are pissed and have now all announced their own plans on how to retaliate against Trump's tariffs. So what the hell is going on? Well, you see, yesterday Trump's promised 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico and 10% on China officially kicked in. What that means is that any goods sent from these countries to the United States will now cost companies 25% more, or 10% in China's case. So for example, if a Canadian business sent a car to the US that cost $50,000, today US companies will pay a $12,500 tariff at the border. So the price of your once $50,000 car is now actually $62,500. Why would Trump purposefully make things more expensive for Americans? Well, two main reasons. The first is more of a longer-term, unguaranteed benefit, but it would be to change consumer habits to buy more American-made products and incentivize more international companies to manufacture in the US. In theory, that means a stronger US economy, more stable jobs, and less dependence on foreign countries. The second reason for imposing these tariffs would be to use them as a tool to pressure Canada, Mexico, and China into doing what Trump wants. Some of these things that he's publicly mentioned include renegotiating trade deals, stopping illegal immigration, and the flow of fentanyl. There's also the far-fetched idea of Canada becoming a state of America. But here's where things get interesting, because instead of just doing what Trump wants, Canada has clapped back with a 25% tariff of their own, and Mexico said they're doing the same but haven't announced the percentage yet. China reacted a little differently by preparing to file a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization. So why is Trump not backing down? Just listen to this. In 2023, Canada sent 76% of all of their exports to the United States. That accounts for roughly 19% of their entire GDP. In 2024, Mexico sent 78% of all of their exports to the United States. That makes up 37% of their entire GDP. But for America, their exports to both countries combined only make up roughly 2.7% of their entire GDP. So simply put, even if they do retaliate, getting into a tariff war with the United States would hit Canada and Mexico much harder. Trump knows this, and he's using it.
Interesting. I got distracted while I was but I watched it yesterday. So that kind of gives it an idea of why maybe he's doing that. There's somebody else on Twitter that I follow had something to say that was very similar, and that's Cat Canada. I'm just going to find it here. And she has a clip of Trump, so I'll first share it. She said, whoever said Trump is using tariff to encourage domestic production and manufacturing was right. He says it here. Let's play the video.
Plants are open. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our
Started again. Sorry, I got distracted by it. So that was what Cat Canada had to say. Let's see what else I've got here. This is another tweet, but it's not just by James Lindsay. It's a tweet by someone else. But James Lindsay says, Canada's our ally, but it has been off course. Strong borders, trade, and energy matter to MAGA and U.S. interests. The Canadian Liberal Party pushes awful policies that hurt both nations, though. MAGA should support Canada, not Trudeau and Carney's Liberal to keep America first. And then Tokyo Rosie, I don't know who she is. Do I follow her? I do. She said, I think it's a joke, as in Rosie O'Donnell, maybe. I've always said it's not Canada that Trump is after, it's the Liberal Party. So the next time Trudeau wraps himself in the flag, understand it's not Canada he's trying to protect, it's himself. He's just gaslighting you to make you think it's about him. So that was an interesting take that I think I kind of agree with. No, I don't know who this account is, but Canadian anger at the USA is wrong. Coyne, Kenny, Freeland, Ford, Singh, Polyev, Carney, etc. are all wrong. Canada faces U.S. tariff only because of liberal incompetence and corruption. The International Coalition Against Illicit Economies released a report in 2023. So this is a thread, but I thought it was really interesting, and it had really good graphs as well. The growing harm of cross-border illicit trade vectors and threat convergence to Canada's national security. So if you click on that, if you follow her, it's Naya Pfanner. The report studied all the areas that Canada is failing, except none of this is new. Oceans of ink have been spilled about Canada's cozy relationship with China, being soft on crime and sentencing, and its reluctance to stop espionage. We all know these truths to be self-evident. And it talks about like narcotics and opioids, fake pharmaceuticals and other consumer counterfeits, illegal alcohol, illegal tobacco. We know that's a huge problem. Other crimes and consumer frauds, cross-border money laundering, and such. The report details, like so many others have in the media, at conference in committee and at multiple foreign interference kangaroo hearings, Canada has become a problem with China and organized crime, and Canada refused to be a serious society. Even something seemingly minor as illegal cigarette is a huge organized crime industry in Canada. It's a $10 billion a year industry, and no one in Canada talks about it. The Canadian government gives it a complete pass because we are not a lawful society and no one seems to care. The report details how all of our ports are run through organized crime and no one in Canada seems to give any care in the world. Certainly the government doesn't, because China, and we are okay with that. So this is the same thing that Sam Cooper talked about when I had him on the show. He talked about how there's no monitoring system in the Canadian ports. They're owned by Chinese industry, and there's no police that are checking everything that's coming in and out. And he talks about how that has created an environment for the precursors to fentanyl to be brought from China to Canada, and then they're being made in super labs in Canada. Now, there's been several arrests and takedown of super labs in Canada, but for the several arrests, there's said to be like almost like 400 of them. So So we know that the fentanyl is being created in Canada. There's way more being created that could ever be used to feed Canada, which means it has to be going. So not necessarily feed Canada, but feed the purchasing desire of people who seek it in Canada, which means it's being sent somewhere else. One of those places is the US. Toronto Dominion Bank has the largest fine in history for criminal money laundering, and it barely made a peep in Canada. I don't know if you know, but TD Bank was charged the biggest fine because they were doing money laundering. No investigations, no criminal charges, no ministers resigned, no probe why Canada police missed it. Canada is an unlawful cabal, and everyone's okay with that. Canadian-made fentanyl is an international problem, RCMP says. Like, I remember when I was a police officer, almost every drug seizures that I did, whether it was in a traffic stop, almost all of it was laced with fentanyl. Even like pills that look like any other, like Demerol or any type of pain medication, they were all fake pills and laced with fentanyl. It was always testing positive almost every single time. I'm just reading the comment. Neil says there's a delegation from Alberta to talk about becoming part of the US. Yes, I'm going to be covering it later in the show. Shelley says Vancouver is no longer recognizable. Immigrants and refugees have totally invaded and taken over the city. Canada, she also says Canada has become an embarrassment to even admit. And Golda, I don't know if I can I can't grab the link to put on the screen. Maybe I can grab it if I go on Twitter, but I can't from this screen when I'm getting comments, which is something that's kind of a. And then there's this post. The Liberals decided it was of greater importance to create a veil for Mark Carney's coronation than for Canada to maintain democratic governance while facing our greatest threat since World War II. Those who have accepted, supported, and gave their actions accreditations are not patriots, but instead complicit in the subversion and corruption of Canada's democratic foundation. Like the fact that we don't even have a government sitting right now, that it's been prorogued, like just shows how they're not really serious about solving this issue. Now, there was another tweet. I'm going to find, not a tweet, but it was a post about it. I'm just going to see if I can find it. Oh, weird. Some of the, here, right here. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc says Canada won't negotiate a compromise on U.S. tariff, rejecting a suggestion from a U.S. official to meet in the middle. So, and this was before their conversation. Trudeau-Trump expected to speak today as Canada says it won't settle for reduced tariffs. So this is, the pleb said, the Trump administration offered Canada to negotiate a compromise on tariff. Trudeau said no. As I said since the start, they don't want this trade war. The Liberals are willing to make Canadians suffer to help their election chances. Team Canada is a complete fraud. I completely agree with pleb on that. Now, and it's kind of funny. This is what Trump is alluding in his Truth Social post. I'm just going to see if I have it here. Here's one. Where did it go? Here, give me a second. I'm going to find the full one. I tweeted about it, so I'll go find my tweet. I have too many things. And it's, okay, here it is. Oh, it's all, oops. There you go. Justin Trudeau of Canada called me to ask what could be done about the tariffs. I told him that many people have died from fentanyl. For those of you who weren't watching when I first started the show, I read this, but there's a lot more people watching now, so I'm going to reread it. So Trump tweeted this after apparently his phone call with Justin Trudeau today. It was alluded to that was going to happen in the previous post, but he says, I told him that many people have died from fentanyl that came through the border of Canada and Mexico, and nothing has convinced me that this has stopped. He said that it's gotten better, but I said, that's not good enough. The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner. He was unable to tell me when the Canadian election is taking place, which made me curious. Like, what's going on here? I then realized he is trying to use this issue to stay in power. Good luck, Justin Trudeau. And then he tweeted a second tweet. For anyone who's interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problem we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the death of many people. Now, I'm curious as to if he's tweeted or truthed anything since. Where did he go? Oh no, it disappeared. Is there not anything else? How do you search Trump? Let's see if there's anything new. No, that's the last tweet he's done, or truth, or whatever you call that. It's interesting. I'm just trying to find to see what another tweet that gives us a perspective too as to what we're facing in Canada is this one. This is the first tariff that should be lifted by the Trudeau Carney Liberal government. Yes, our economy is being attacked by the Trump administration, but it's also being attacked from within. Top 15 countries by carbon tax revenue. $7.8 billion. France is the only one that's higher than us. What is the population of France? I'm just going to check. What is the population of France? $68.6 billion. Okay, so they're a bit bigger than us, so it would make sense. Oh boy, I have so much to cover today. I'm going to skip some of the stuff because there's too much. There was a long interview here with Secretary Lutnick. There was talks about potentially the tariffs being put on hold. Here. This is a video, so I'll play
out today. He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed.
Here.
Now, he's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, you know, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way. And we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome. The president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Just to clarify,
he's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed.
Interesting. So this was before we saw the response in the phone conversation. David, I don't know if I got your email yet because it takes me a little bit longer to get into that email. It's not like I can just look it up on the phone. So I haven't logged in yet, but I will later today. Gulda says it's mostly talking about the concerns the USA has of Canada harboring terrorists who wants to attack the USA. Here, sorry, I missed your first message. Okay, the tweet, the post that you shared. That's what you're talking about. Oh, there's so many comments. Neil says, Smith said this morning that people weren't interested in being American, but I don't think she can say anything. It's a satanic demoralization agenda. It's humiliation ritual. I don't know what that means. David says, I think being US is getting more and more appealing. Neil says we would like our own country. Let's see what else I got here. So this was the same guy that was getting interviewed. He was at the Trump address. I'll play it quickly. I just got to add volume to everything.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today said that Donald Trump is trying to cripple the Canadian economy in order to annex it. What do you say to that?
Justin Trudeau is running the end of his term, and I don't really want to think about the ridiculous things he's said in the last couple of days. It's sad. It's time for him to go, and let's move on, have a new government in Canada.
The thing is, if all of Canada was to be annexed, it would be a blue state. I don't think Trump would want that. It would be a blue state most of the time. Now, if Alberta and Saskatchewan only, that might be different. I could see him going in that direction. Okay, these are some of the polls. And like yesterday, I was quite frustrated. I'm still frustrated, but now I almost am at the point where I can laugh about it because it's just so sad and pathetic. But anyways, this is a poll that was done. 27% of Canadians viewed the United States as an enemy nation, while only 31% view them as an ally. Canada's attitudes are shifting rapidly against the US. Like, this is what I'm talking about. This is the brainwashing that's happening. Just because a country is saying, hey, we're not going to let you take advantage of us anymore. We want fairer trade deals. Like I showed earlier, just a simple fact that we're charging GST and HST, that's 16% in New Brunswick. That's 11% in Saskatchewan. That's 5% in Alberta. I don't know what it is in Ontario. Anyone who's from Ontario who's watching, let me know what the HST and GST or whatever it is called in your province, what it is. We're charging that on products. We already have a tariff. Just most people don't know about it, versus the US doesn't have that. So even if we were to just match that 16% or 15%, what would be the average across all of Canada? Like they're just saying basically, don't take advantage of us. 13% in Ontario. So is Ontario okay with a 13% tariff? I would see that being reasonable. If you're going to tariff the US, then Canada, if you're going to tariff products coming into Canada from the US at 13% or 11% in Saskatchewan or 16% in New Brunswick, then it should be the exact same thing. Right? That would be that would be the complete fair way to deal with this. But Canada doesn't want to recognize the part that we take as into the reason Trump is not happy with us. You can talk about the fentanyl, you can talk about the financial numbers, you can talk about the trade deficit, but most Canadians don't even know that there's already a hidden tariff in Canada that we have on the US. Most Canadians don't know that. So Trump, and yes, Shelley says Trump is a fair man. And I do think he's a fair man, but I also think he knows he has an advantage in this negotiation and he's using that. But even LeBlanc says we're not going to come to a happy medium. Like they're talking as if our economy is greater than the US. Like we're positioned in a way better situation than the US. They're talking as if this tariff war is going to affect the US more than it's going to affect Canada. And it's not. These simply aren't the cards that we have. And unfortunately, most Canadians are too uninformed and ignorant to know the truth about that. They just swallow everything the Liberal government is saying, and they just believe it as truth. Like, if anything, the last 10 years should tell us you can't trust what the Liberal government is telling you. You can't trust the narrative. They've lied over and over and over again. And I've talked about this. This is one of the reasons I woke up to reality. I used to be a Liberal. I used to vote left. I voted for Trudeau his first time around. And the reason I switched is I realized how much the man lies to Canadians. Like I can read body language. I'm a trained profiler. So I can tell when he's lying. And that's what he constantly does. He lies, he gaslights us, he continues repeating the same propaganda narrative to Canadians, and we're believing it. Like the recent one is he's trying to make you believe that Trump, instead of doing trade with us, is wanting to do trade with Putin, with Russia. Trump is teaming up with Russia more than he is with Canada. Like that's the new lie that a lot of you probably believe. You're thinking, oh, Trump is teaming up with Russia. They're going to go to war against Canada to take over Canada. I bet you some Canadians who watch this actually believe this. This is how brainwashed you've been. Trump is not making trade deals with Putin. He's trying to end the war in Ukraine, the Russian-Ukrainian war. He's trying to stop World War III. He's trying to stop a nuclear war. But you go ahead and believe Trudeau. Because it's so much easier to keep your head in the sand to realize that you've been fooled for all these years. Am I feeling a lot of emotions right now? Yes, I am. I don't know about that. So Shelley says Putin's not the bad guy. You know what? It's possible that Ukraine and Putin can both be led by bad people, evil people. I don't think Putin's a saint. Not for a second. I don't think he runs his country in the best way. He arrests his opposition same way as Ukraine does, but he does a lot of things that aren't good. Now, I don't think painting Putin as a good guy is good either. Do I think he's everything the liberals are saying he is? No, I don't think he's going to continue doing forever war to encroach, eventually take over the world. Like that's how they're trying to paint him. I don't think that's his intentions. I think honestly, he was really upset by NATO encroaching more and more on his border. And he said that many, many times. It's not like it was a hidden thing he was upset about. But I also know that there's a lot of narratives being painted about Russia. But I talked about that. Was it yesterday or the episode before? I covered what some of the former American presidents said about him. They've definitely painted him a certain way. Okay, so this is just how brainwashed Canadians are. This is another example. So Doug Ford and now Wob, how do you say his name? The sorry if I'm butchering it. I'm going to see if I can find it. The premier of Manitoba. Wob Kinew? Wob Kinew, that's how you say it, has done the same thing, went and did like a signing thing, like he's doing like an executive order to get all American booze off the shelves. Like, so many things remind me so much of COVID. Remember when all the mom and pop shops were closed, but the liquor stores stayed open? Because that's like something that's like the most important things to residents, to Canadians, or to Ontarians. Like they're doing the exact same thing. The propaganda is all over the TV. Oh, we're going to take all these whiskeys off the shelf, and the videos everywhere of them taking it off the shelves as if that's the US. The liquor's already been bought and paid for. You already paid for it. It's already on the shelf. The only thing you're doing is hurting yourself. But anyways, Lisa Robinson says the LCBO's decision to pull American liquors from its shelves is yet another example of government incompetence at its finest. The liquor has already been purchased, meaning taxpayers have already footed the bill. Instead of recouping that money by selling the stock to consumers, the LCBO is choosing to take a financial loss, wasting public funds in the process. Why? To virtue signal? If they truly wanted to make a statement, they could have stopped future purchases while selling off the existing inventory. But instead, this is nothing more than a hollow gesture at accomplishing nothing except hurting Ontario consumers in their own bottom line. And the fact that this is like a government-run liquor store, the bottom line it hurts is people in Ontario. It's government-run. It's a crown corporation. It's alive. Trader Kevin is asking, is this live or a rerun? It's alive. This is what happens when a government-run monopoly prioritizes virtue signaling over basic business sense. It's so true. Oh, sorry. I'm not even showing the post. I just realized that now. This is the post by Lisa Robinson. I'm going to see. I've gotten a few more. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. They're showing videos everywhere of them pulling the liquor off the shelves. Next video will be like, "Buy Canadian. We're a red Canadian flag. We need to fight this together. We're going to war." Like, they're going to start calling people to wear fatigues and army uniform because we're at war. I have to laugh at it because it's so sad and pathetic. And what really pisses me off, if you want to boycott Canadian or US supply, boycott it all you want. But don't tell me what I can and can't buy. That pisses me off. Don't tell me that I can't go to the US to travel. Like, next thing, it wouldn't shock me, actually. It wouldn't shock me if Trudeau was to ban travel to the US. Like this reminds me so much of the COVID years. Like, it's same kind of thing. Government telling me what I can't and can't buy. You want to incentivize it less? Put a tariff on it, maybe. Do what Trump's done. Don't pull it from the shelf. Like, this pisses me off so much. It really, really pisses me off. I don't like when government tries to control its people. I really don't like it. I don't even drink. I used to drink wine, but I don't even drink. But it still pisses me off. Okay, this is another idiotic thing. So Chrystia Freeland said Donald Trump's tariff are the biggest threat since World War II. Canada has suffered decades of lost economic growth. GDP per capita is at the same level it was in 2014. The biggest threat to Canada is the Liberal government continuing to govern. Post from Mark Nixon. So if you don't follow Mark, I highly recommend you do. He does a lot of really good content. Let's see if we can play this video. Oh, I have a hard time listening to them.
As Prime Minister, the first thing that I will do is urgently convene a meeting of the premiers of the provinces and territories and convene a meeting of Canadian business leaders and union leaders. And I will say to them, we are facing economic warfare. We are facing what is the gravest threat to our country since the Second World War.
The greatest threat to our country since the Second World War is the Liberal government, in my opinion. Okay, so now I want to, since I showed all the idiotic things that many leaders and people are doing with how they're dealing with this, I'm going to show a really good way to deal with this if you understand the negotiation techniques of Trump and what Trump wants. This is someone who shocked me. And look, I don't agree with Yves-François Blanchet very much on many things, but this is one of the things that I agree with him on. I think he's the one making the most sense on how we should be dealing with this tariff war.
I am far from being certain that threatening the United States not to supply them with electricity is such a good idea. We've got to keep in mind that after the crisis, they will still have to be business partners. They will, or we want them to keep buying our electricity. So it seems a strange idea to me to threaten them of being a bad partner, not so reliable partner to them. It's not such a good idea. And we have to keep in mind also that for long periods of time, we buy more electricity from the United States than we sell. So we have to be careful. Sometimes, I understand that in a crisis, we want to show muscles and say big words. But sometimes it's not the best thing to do.
I was reading some of the comments. Now, what is the response by some of the leaders? Danielle Smith, that usually leads the way, had a massive fail. This was yesterday, so I'll tell you why. And I think she's backpedaling on this. So this was her post she did yesterday, which kind of was going along the line with what every other leader has done, like conservative leader that's not acting conservative. But the comments on this post, I think, woke her up a little bit. So she says the tariff imposed by the US President Donald Trump are an unjustifiable economic attack on Canadian and Albertans. They also represent a clear breach of the trade agreement signed by this same US president during his first term. These tariffs will hurt the American people, driving up cost of fuel, food, vehicles, housing, and many other products. They will also cost hundreds of thousands of American and Canadian jobs. This policy is both foolish and a failure in every regard. This is not the way it should be between two of the world's strongest trading ally and partners. We would much rather be working with the US on mutually beneficial trade deals than be caught in the middle of a tariff war. Alberta fully, this is where I think she really goes sideways. Alberta fully supports the Canadian federal response announced today by the Prime Minister. I will be meeting with my cabinet today and tomorrow to discuss Alberta's response to these illegal tariffs, she calls it, which we will announce publicly tomorrow. Now is the time for us to unite as a province and a country. We must do everything in our collective power to immediately tear down provincial trade barriers and fast track the construction of dozens of resource projects, from pipeline to LNG facilities to critical mineral projects. We must strengthen our trade ties through Europe, Asia, and the Americas for all our energy, agriculture, and manufactured products. We also need to drastically increase military spending to ensure we can protect our nation. There's no time to waste on any of these initiatives. I will have more to say tomorrow. So she's basically going along the same lines as most of the other ones. And look at the comments. You federalist Kenny imitator. Albertans elected you to put Alberta first. I sincerely hope this is a carefully crafted plan to capitalize on the Liberal Party failures. I'm not sure coming out in full support of Justin Trudeau is the way forward for Alberta. Very bad statement. There's swear words, but who wrote this? And what did you do with Danielle Smith? You know what? It does sound like it's completely different than everything else she's written. Now, she also was on the news here. I'm going to play some of it. It's quite long, so I'm probably not going to play the whole thing, but let's share this screen with you guys.
Alberta sold more than $160 billion of goods to the United States, including more than $130 billion of energy, which does get tariffed, but only 10%, not 25%. Thank you for joining us. What is your reaction from what you just heard from Trudeau?
So disappointing. We've been doing everything we can, not only our federal government, but all of the subnational governments to try to avoid this outcome. We, as you heard, we've been working on the border, and we've been putting up drones, putting up helicopters, putting up more personnel. We've been very successful in stopping people from coming across the border from the United States. We've been stopping drugs from coming across the border from the United States. We've brought those numbers down. We thought that that was what the U.S. president wanted. And to see this escalation is so disappointing, so damaging, initially to American consumers and American businesses who buy Canadian goods and raw materials. But then now with the counter tariffs, it's also going to be harmful to Canadian consumers. No one wins a tariff war. And so we want to go back to looking at the agreement that we signed, the USMCA, that has served us well for a number of years. And I don't know why the president is behaving this way, because it's illegal. We're going to challenge it. And would like to get back to negotiating some of the pressure points on that.
How bad is it going to be for Alberta economically?
I must say, like I've talked about the 10% tariff with our producers and those who sell the goods, and then everyone's going to take a little bit of a bite on that. Our producers are, the refiners in the United States are going to have higher costs. American consumers are going to have a higher cost. You're going to see it, the price of the pump, more so in the areas where refineries are 100% reliant on Canadian oil. So it's, and as you know, if you increase the cost of energy, you increase the cost of everything. So it's going to have an inflationary effect in the U.S. We're already seeing the effect on the stock market today. Investors don't like the decisions that have been made today. And the best move would be to try to de-escalate as quickly as possible. Let's get down to talking about what the real issues are, as opposed to a pretext, and then solve those irritants so that we can get on with having the best tariff-free relationship that I think any two nations have in the world.
Do you think this is truly about fentanyl?
I think it was, but I think we've demonstrated. I have to tell you, like when I'm looking at the bus that we have at the border, is cocaine and crystal meth coming up from America. So these are issues that are two-way issues. That America has cartels and organized crime that are causing problems for us, and we recognize that it is a two-way street. They should too. We want to be able to address those issues collaboratively, share the intelligence, but to act as if this is only a one-way problem. Remember, there's a lot of distance between Canada and Mexico. There's a big country in the middle, and so we are not the root of a lot of the problems. We in fact are having some spillover effects.
Somebody
Of those
needs
problems.
to
We've noticed
educate
as we
her
started doing a lot more
on this
work
issue.
and stoppages at the borders. You're going to see more of that now. Now that we found so many drugs coming up from the United States, we're going to have to do more stops of American trucks coming across the border so that we can stop that too. We're doing our part to be able to bust the fentanyl operations that are happening in our country as well. But I think that this is a problem we should be working on collectively rather than.
So one of the things I'm noticing is Danielle Smith can only deal with the Alberta US border. They don't stop the vehicles going out. That would be on the US border side. Now, where is this all coming in? Well, it's not usually coming in from the Alberta US border. It's coming in from the port. So she's her hands are kind of tied because she can only do so much in Alberta if the products are coming from the ports, which would be like in BC, probably in the East Coast as well, but I think it's mostly in BC, in Vancouver, all of those ports. But maybe what they can do is do more checks between the border of BC and Alberta to try to catch it while it's in transition, because it's going to the US somehow. They can't just stop all the trucks going into the US, but they do have a lot of intel too, so I think they can do a way better job than what they've been doing. But I don't necessarily think that's Danielle Smith's problem. I think it's BC needs to up their game and start really cracking down on fentanyl. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, considering BC is like allowing fentanyl on the streets. D says illegal guns come from America. David asks, you think Alberta will flip? Even more important to form a union with the USA? I don't know. I've been shocked by some of the polls that I've seen and the response that I have seen online. But I mean, Twitter's not a complete reflection of the world. I think on Twitter, a lot more people are exposed to the other side. So you will have a lot more people with conservative values, I think, on Twitter than you would like on Facebook. It's starting to change too, because Facebook is now becoming more open to free speech. So I'm not sure it's like a perfect example, but I did do a poll, the same poll I did on Twitter. I did do it on Facebook as well, because I wanted to see if it would have similar sentiment. And because I was shocked by the poll that I did about Alberta, Saskatchewan separating. The poll that I did here, I took a screenshot of it this morning because I was going to share it in the group. 60%, and this was for Alberta, Saskatchewan residents only. 60% want to separate and join the US, 30% want to separate and form a new country, and 10% want to stay within Canada. Now, I also did the poll. I'm going to bring it up here. I did the poll. So I have a Facebook group called Unified Grassroots for the nonprofit that I'm the president of. So I did a poll in there. And those are mostly Saskatchewan resident. I would say like 90% of the people in there are Saskatchewan resident. So 66% said they want to separate and join the US. Some people keep adding stuff. I don't want it to be skewed. They keep adding stuff and people are voting for it. So 66% want to separate and join the US. 24% want to separate and form a new country. And only 7% want to stay within Canada. So that's on the Facebook group, which is kind of slanted. These are all people that were really upset during the COVID era. Now, I did it also on my own personal Facebook, and I will add as well that I have a lot of followers from New Brunswick. I'm originally from New Brunswick. So I think a lot of the reflection of the little bit difference is probably people from New Brunswick don't really want Alberta, Saskatchewan to separate. But so 14% of the vote said they want to stay within Canada. 64% of the vote says they want to separate and join the US. And 21% of the vote says they want to separate and form a new country. So the results that I got within Facebook and like both in the private group and my personal Facebook page, as well as the Twitter, are kind of all aligning around the same. Now, I'm a conservative. I post conservative content. Most of the people who have followed me extra, I think I have like 1,500 new followers in the last few months since I started the show, I would consider would be conservatives. However, my Facebook before that wasn't conservative. So like 3,500 of that wouldn't be conservative. And a big portion of that would be people who are from the East Coast where I grew up. So it's interesting to see that sentiment being reflected in the polls. I was actually shocked about it. Now, I do have here, I have a poll that was done about it. I'm just going to see if I can find it. Somebody shared it. Oh, is it? Oh, it's not showing up anymore. I didn't save the poll. I just saved, it was as a comment under this. So Charlie Kirk made this post. Okay, if Alberta wants to become the 51st state, that's a decent idea. So, and this is the video that I shared yesterday with Jeff Rath, the lawyer who's talking about there's a delegation going to the States who's trying to pitch Alberta joining the US to Trump. So it's already been pitched to Trump. I know people personally who have pitched it to Trump, who have had access to Trump to mention it to him. So this is not like a thing that hasn't happened yet. But there was a poll that was shared in the comments of this post, but it's not coming up here anymore. I'm going to just see quickly if I bookmarked it, because usually I do. If I see something interesting. No, I didn't bookmark it because I had it was up, so I didn't think I needed to. Oops, I went too far. So Charlie Kirk is talking about it. Charlie is very close with the Trump administration, so I'm sure it's being mentioned over and over again. Now, why do we think this sentiment is going up? I think a lot of Albertans is realizing how easily brainwashed Canadians are. And I think that sentiment was down. The Western alienation was down a bit when we had hoped that there would be a conservative government that would come in and change all of this. But I think what we're seeing the polls, like even after the last 10 years of Liberal government, we're seeing the polls start going back towards the Liberal government. People are like, you know what? I'm out. I think that's how people are feeling. If Canadians can't see through this Liberal government and still think that they're the right answer to lead this country after the disaster that they've created in the last 10 years, it's almost like we're at the point where like, I don't think we can save this. Like, I don't think that we can wake up enough Canadians to actually save this country. And our only hope or our only chance at surviving and becoming better and thriving and becoming a good country or a good province is to separate and go with someone who sees the truth for what it is. And I think that's why that sentiment is going up. When we're seeing polls like this, I'm going to share these polls. When we're seeing polls like this, it shouldn't even be a close call. After the 10 years of Trudeau and how much Canadians suffered because of policies that they've enacted, it shouldn't be a close call. But yet, look at where we are. Why? Because Orange Man bad. Orange Man is the enemy now. And so now it's not the unvaccinated that are the enemy. It's Americans and Trump and Trump's policy. They're the enemy. So now we're all going to rally together and hate on the Americans. We're going to boo their anthem. We're going to stop selling their liquor. Like, this is literally, you want to know why Alberta and Saskatchewan's sentiment for separation is going up? It's because of crap like that. I'm tired of having to pull along Canadians to reality. And I think a lot of people are too. When we're seeing the voting that's still occurring in the East Coast, the polling, and not just that, even seeing leaders like Ford becoming liberals and then winning this huge majority. Like, I don't know, Ontario, why you haven't gotten rid of that leader and gotten a new one. Like, he's no different than Trudeau right now, but yet you're still voting for him. And I'm not saying vote for another party, but figure out a way to get rid of him as your leader. Find a better leader. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of hope in wanting to stay in Canada because I don't see Canada going in the positive direction, offering my children a future that I can be excited for if we stay the course that we've stayed. And unfortunately, I don't think Pierre is recognizing when you start pretending to be a liberal, people see that there's no difference between you and the liberal. So they might as well vote the way they've always voted because you're just the same as them. How about you show them a different way of life, a different opportunity, a way that can actually get us out of this mess? How about you be different than the liberal instead of following along with the liberals' failed policy for the last 10 years? You should be standing out and saying, you know what? I know how to deal with Trump. This is what we're going to do. Do. Contact Trump and say, can we make a deal? If I come into power, like shouldn't be attacking Trump along with the liberals. Like, that's the worst possible thing you can do. Anyways, my sentiment for Western separation has gone way up in the last little while. Way up. And it could be potentially influenced by my husband. He's a full-on separatist. He's been a separatist since he was 14 years old. So it doesn't shock me that he's a separatist. But I can tell you, if we don't get an election, Western separatism is going to go up. If we do get an election and Mark Carney gets in, Western separation is going to go up. I think the only thing that could potentially stop this from happening or stop this from going in that direction is if Mark Carney gets in, an election is called right away, Pierre Poilievre wins by a majority government and starts putting in policies to bring back prosperity to Alberta and Saskatchewan and stop blacklisting Alberta and Saskatchewan to try to serve Quebec and the East Coast constantly. I think that's the only hope. And I'd like to say that I think that's the direction we're going to go, but I don't actually believe it. Maybe I don't actually believe it. So I'm kind of along with most of my followers. I almost think like my kids' better future option for the future is going to be better if we join the US. Why? Because we'll have more access to pipeline. We'll stop having our natural resources blocked by the federal government. We'll start having more opportunity for growth, for innovation, for jobs. I think the protection of the Constitution that the US has is way better than our Constitution in Canada or our Charter of Rights and Freedom, which were null and void during COVID. At least the US, they still had some protection. In Canada, we had none. Anytime they want, they can just null and void it for whatever reason they want. They can use that clause, whatever clause it's called, to null and void it. What are other reason? I don't know. Easier access to go travel, maybe work in warmer countries because I really don't like the winter. It's so funny because if you had asked me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if I ever would be a separatist, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. And what happened during COVID and the response thereafter and the lack of accountability, the lack of protections put in place, I don't trust this Canada. I don't trust that Canada is going to offer my kids a future that's better than the future than the life that I had. And I'm motivated by my kids and my kids' future. And I've always said that. I don't have alliance to a party. I don't have alliance to a specific government. I have alliance to my family and my God. And anything that comes against that, that's my line. And I don't trust this province the way the government, like I've said before, I don't trust this current government. I still don't. because there's been no accountability, no things put in place to stop what happened during COVID to happen again. I don't trust this federal government. I don't trust the Canadian voter. I don't trust any of it. So when I think about my future and the future of my kids, I look at where is there a place that has more protection to protect civil liberties, to protect opportunity, to protect growth, to protect the dream. I don't see Canada as it. Could that change in the future? Possibly. But right now I have such a lack of hope in Canada. And that's all because of behavior of the current government, both provincially and federally. I've lost so much hope based on their actions and behavior that I look to any other opportunity that could be better. And this is one of the cases that I do honestly believe the grass could be much greener in my yard. If it became part of the US, I wasn't fully decided in the last 2 weeks. And then my husband and I have had so much discussions on this. And I'm like, another thing, you can't even protect yourself in Canada. We've had break-ins in our house. I've had death threats. I've had so many things that have protected this, that have attacked the security that I used to feel in my home. I don't feel safe in my home anymore. I call police. Sometimes it's an hour and 10 minutes away for police to attend. Sometimes it's closer, depending on the detachment area. But we have a detachment in Warman, which would be 25 minutes, lights and siren, maybe 22 minutes away. But that's not my area. My detachment is in Rostern, which is 45 minutes away, maybe even longer. And if they're at the opposite end of their detachment, it's even longer. Sometimes it might be an hour and 10 minutes for police response to break and enter. We don't have the protection here in Canada than you have in the US. The castle law, you can't even protect your home. So yeah, there's a lot of things, I think, benefits that would come from if Saskatchewan was to become part of the US. Does it have negatives? Probably. I just don't see that many. Sorry, there's a lot of people commenting. Let's see. I had a lot to say. David says, PP doesn't have the cojones to do anything radical to change the course. Shelley says, we are supposed to leave our kids a better future. Maria says 51st state until the Dems get back in. See, that's the other thing though. In America, the federal government, or if you compare the federal government, doesn't control as much on the way you live than the states. The states are basically their own little country, and it's very little that the federal government controls. And it used to be like that in Canada. Unfortunately, the Liberals have encroached on so many of the things that are supposed to be controlled by the province level that they've kind of controlled our whole way of life. And they have so much influence on the way provincial government conduct themselves based on the funding that they get. We saw that during COVID. But versus in the States, it's not as much like that. It's a lot different. Every state is kind of its own little country. So even though the Democrats could get in power at the federal level, whatever you call it, in the US, I think there'll still be more protection. An acceptable doggy mama says, for sure we can't trust the Canadian voter. They are propaganda fed the mainstream media, probably narrative. It's cut short there. Maria asks, hey, where did it go? It disappeared. Did anyone see a Rebel News post on X about Libs picking their new criminal leader being delayed? I didn't see that. David says, I think that our, as in Republican, will be in power for at least the next election cycle. Trader Kevin says, yes, exactly, Nadine. A little country within a country is a good way to put it. Also, US may just want Alberta and Saskatchewan, but no way will Trump want the rest of these uninformed socialists. I think I agree. I don't honestly think he wants like all of Canada to become the 51st state. I think that was more of a joke. But I think he is eyeing Alberta. Okay, what else do I have here? Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk about the Tate brothers quickly. Oh, maybe I'll save it for tomorrow. No, tomorrow I have a guest. I'll go through it really quick. So I've talked about Andrew Tate and his brother, what's his name? Tristan Tate before. There's a lot of information online that's completely false about the Tate brothers. And I don't mean false as in that they're actually innocent. I do believe the Tate brothers to be guilty of pretty much everything they've been charged with. And I'll explain why in a minute. But I'm really disappointed in conservative content creators who are defending them and letting them spread their lies without correcting them or fact checking them. Candace Owens being one of them, Benny Johnson being one of them. I'm actually going to stop sharing some of their content on here because I'm so disgusted with them. But Andrew Tate and his brothers have not had all of their charges dropped in Romania. They are still facing every single charge. In fact, they've had more charges added onto their record, and they are still supposed to be going to trial. Now, them being in the US doesn't mean they don't have a court case, they don't have a trial anymore. They were given an approval to go to the US for a short break. They're supposed to return back to Romania to face those charges. Now, not only that, they are also charged out of the UK with a similar type charge, human trafficking, raping, and I don't know if the minor is one of the issues in the US. It is in Romania. One of them is they trafficked a minor. So Vivian, if you've heard him talk about Vivian, she was 15 when she started being trafficked from the Tate brothers, which means they probably groomed her before. So that relationship probably would have started before she turned 15, which would have put her around 14 years of age. Anyways, they've now flown to the States. I've seen a lot of reports saying that Trump brought them in. I don't believe that. Trump was actually asked about the Tate brothers. I'm going to see if I can find it. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything about it, but I'll look into it and get back to you. Here, I'm just going to see if I can find that question. See if I can find the video. Just quickly. I'm just going to look quickly. Trump is asked about
Keep that one.
Yeah, keep that one.
I'll make it bigger so you guys can see it.
And President Trump, Andrew and Tristan Tate landed in Florida today, private jet, after being released from custody in Romania. They are accused rapists, human traffickers, not thought of as good people in many circles. Did your administration pressure the Romanian government to release them? And if so,
I
why?
know nothing about that. I don't know. You're saying he's on a plane right now?
He's back. They already.
Yeah, I just know nothing about it. We'll check it out. We'll let you know.
I do. Look, obviously this involves, there's an English element here, so obviously it's
Oh,
important justice is done, and human trafficking is obviously, to my mind, a security risk. And so we'll catch up with the story in due course.
You're aware? Are you aware? I didn't know anything about it. Yeah. Keep that one.
Yeah, keep that one.
Okay, so that's the UK Prime Minister here, Keir Starmer. I can't remember if I said his name correctly, and he they're also facing charges out of the UK, and they've applied for what's it called, extra when here, just give me a sec, I'll ask. what is it called when somebody is facing charges in another country that they're not, and the government wants to have them, oh, I just remembered now, extradited from the U. Yeah, extradition. Thank you. Extradited from the US to UK to face the charges there. It's already in play right now. Anyways, once they were done all of their charges in their trial and their jail sentence in Romania, they were supposed to be extradited back to the UK to face charges there. So now I have a bit more on this as well. So when they landed in, I just got to find it. When they landed in Florida, Ron DeSantis made a post about it. I don't think I shared it, but made a post about it. They're not welcome here. A lot of conservatives went to their defense. I agree with Ron DeSantis. If you have somebody who's convicted, charge of human trafficking, has had a history of it in several countries, and they're still facing trial, why are they traveling to Florida? Now, with that came a report here. I'm just going to find it here. A post by Attorney General James Youthmeyer. I'm going to show you guys too some of the people to follow on the Tate brothers who've been exposing a lot of the things they're charged with. They actually publicly bragged about in videos, admitted to doing. There's a lot of text conversations between there's like these groups, pimp groups that they formed, where they got all these young men to go, and they would teach them how to become more like them, become pimps and make money from webcam. They expose all the lies that the Tate brothers say when they go on shows like Candace Owens and Benny Johnson. They kind of show the video of what they say and what the truth is and stuff that kind of debunks all of it. Anyways, I've been digging deep into them because I want to do a full episode just on them and what they've done and what they bragged about doing. Anyways, as a former police officer who's trained to profile sex offenders and child sex offenders, I can tell you the stuff that I'm seeing come from them. It doesn't make me think for a second that they are innocent. If anything, the evidence that I've seen would be enough for 100% conviction. So I think maybe there's corruption in the sense that they've paid off some people. There's been a lot of witness tampering as well. And I think them flying to Florida is just another example of that. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But last week, so this is Attorney General James Youthmeyer. He's the Attorney General in Florida. Last week, I directed my office to work with our law enforcement partner to conduct a preliminary inquiry into Andrew and Tristan Tate. Based on thorough review of the evidence, I've directed the Office of Statewide Prosecution to execute search warrants and issue subpoenas in the now active criminal investigation into the Tate brothers. And just so you know, when you're a U.S. citizen and you travel into another country and you have sexual relations with anyone who's under 18 years of age, you are committing a crime, an American crime, and you can be charged in America on American soil too. That's something to keep in mind. It's not just in the US. We have the same thing in Canada. So, and the reason all these protections have been put in place is to stop human trafficking, to stop Americans or Canadians to go into countries like Thailand and stuff where the age of consent is much lower, or where it's not really policed, but then you can still hold them accountable in a court of law here or in North America. So anyway, so he posted that. There's also a video where he talks about it. So I'll share that with you guys.
Yeah, look, these guys have themselves publicly admitted to participating in what very much appears to be soliciting, trafficking, preying upon women around the world. Many of these victims coming forward, some of them minors, people can spin or defend however they want. But in Florida, this type of behavior is viewed as atrocious. We're not going to accept it. They chose to come here and set their feet down in this state. And we're going to pursue every tool we have within our legal authority to hold them accountable. So we are in the process today. We have secured and executed subpoenas and warrants, and we're going to continue to move forward with full force of law. This is an ongoing criminal investigation, and we're going to use every tool we have to ensure that justice is served.
So you've opened a criminal investigation?
There is an active criminal investigation, yes.
Do you believe that you could be giving any details of what?
I can't comment on a pending investigation, but what I can tell you is if these guys did criminal activity here in Florida, we will go after them with the full force of law and hold them accountable.
So I'm just reading some of the comments, and some people are pointing out how Starmer is a dictator. It's not to be trusted. That doesn't mean that they have not offended or done the things they are charged of. And where do I get the belief that they actually have done it? Well, the evidence that they have released online publicly, the fact that they have actually bragged about it publicly all over online. So they can't keep their mouth shut. Now, there's another video that was just released that I'm going to share. It does have some swear words in it. I don't know how many. I'm going to try to find it here while I look through. Oh, I forgot to share some of the other stuff for the tariff. But this, again, it's got some swear words.
Come get me.
Oops. Here you go. So he's on Candace Owens' show.
Arrest me. Perp walk me. Put me on the news. Tell everyone I'm a human trafficker. You think I'm not versed? You think I'm not ready? I'm a Navy SEAL in this shit. Fucking come get me. Raid my house. Take my stuff. You think I sleep with a full phone full of evidence? You think I don't wipe my phone every night? You think I'm dumb? Come get me. Arrest me. Let's do this all over again. I've done it before. Come get me. Arrest me.
If you're not doing things criminals, you don't need to wipe your phone every night. Like this makes him look even more guilty. I didn't see the whole interview. I kind of want to go watch it because I want to see, is Candace Owens like asking him hard question, or is she defending him? She has defended him in the past over and over and over again, which I find shocking to begin with, because if she says she believes the things that she believes, she has the faith that she had, she hates the porn industry, why is she friends with and defending someone like Andrew Tate? It makes you wonder. I know that Andrew Tate is really good friends with her husband. I can't remember his first name, but last name Farmer. Does Andrew Tate have something on her husband, or maybe on her? I don't know. But I'll never understand why so many are simping and defending them. It's when all of the evidence comes out, and I've seen a lot of it. I've seen a lot of it even online. I'm going to show you some accounts to follow that talk about it. Here, give me 1 second. I got to find it. I think Crayon is one of them. This is one account that posts a lot of information about all of their crimes. If you just go through it, you're going to get so sick to your stomach when you see all of the things that they've done, how they've taken advantage of these women, how they've human trafficked them, where they'll take their money, not even pay them the money that they're making off the webcam, where they're scamming them. And some of them are young. Some of them are 15 years old. Vivian was 15 years old when she started. Murder by Crayons. There's another one, Nathan Livingstone. This guy, also another one that shares a lot of information. So if you don't know much about them, even just going through these people's timeline, you'll learn a lot about the case. Like, I've seen so many amounts of evidence on it, and they also cover the court cases that's happening in Romania. Color by Crayon, or what was it, the name here? Let me bring it back up. The first one. Oh, what was it? The name? Is it Murdered by Crayon? Oh, it's not coming up. Anyways, he's been covering their criminal case in Romania. So it's funny when they are saying publicly to everyone, all the conservative commentators are saying all their charges have been dropped in Romania. That's not true. They're still facing charges. Not only that, they've had extra charges added on because more evidence has come out, especially the one human trafficking of a minor was one of the newest one because evidence come out that one of their victims was 15 years old. Now, and Vivian is that one. Now, they've also done murder by crayons. That's the one here. Here. They have also intimidated a lot of witnesses, and I personally believe that them going to Florida might be a part of them trying to intimidate a witness. One of the witnesses that is fight, or I guess in the Romania trial, she's an American woman, and she's in Florida. And when they landed in Florida, they did a restraining order against her. That she can't approach them or talk to them, or because they were scared of her. So to me, that's more of an example of trying to intimidate a witness by doing lawfare against her. So she's supposed to testify in Romania in the trial. So her name right now, it's when you look online, it's Jane Doe, but the name has been released as to who she is. So Jane Doe. Here, I'm just going to see, because if I search, they might even talk. Nathaniel might even talk about it. Nathan Livingstone, sorry. Here. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah. So exposing it, victim's lawyer reveals shocking truths in exclusive interview. She represents Jane Doe as an American among the Andrew Tate's alleged victim in his Romania case. They've also been charged with intimidating a witness. So the human trafficking victim is fighting back and telling her side of the story. She's been living in hiding since she left Romania. All her fears have come to fruition. These are some of the things in the interview. Anyways, I highly recommend you watch it. You'll learn a little bit more about them. Anyways, I'm just so disappointed that any conservatives are defending them and trying to paint the picture that they are blameless. They are not guilty of the things that they have been accused of. There's so much evidence out there available publicly that fits the elements of the offense. So I think it's going to look really bad for them in the future when it all comes out and you see the real scale of what monsters these two men are. I think it's going to completely destroy the credibility of any of these conservative commentators or opinion content creator, whatever. It's going to completely destroy all of their credibility in a very short period of time. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's the plan of the Tates, to bring all of these influential people in to completely destroy them. I don't know. It would be a pretty good plan. But I'm glad there are some that are speaking against it. Megyn Kelly is one of them. Kind of everyone at the Daily Wire have been speaking against them. And it's funny because, like, I remember a year ago when I kind of started hearing about them, I'm like, oh, who are they? And then the narrative, like, I'm being attacked by the Matrix, all of that. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of plausible if they're conservatives speaking up. Maybe they are getting attacked. We were seeing lawfare happen all over the US. Maybe it's happening in Romania. I'm like one of those naive people that are like, well, maybe they are really getting targeted, until I have a friend of mine that was like really, really vocal against them, Cat Canada, actually. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, what do you know about this case? I don't really know much. And she sent me a bunch of stuff. I'm like, watching these videos of things that they're publicly admitting to doing, bragging about doing. And for those people who are saying bragging about doing something doesn't mean you did it. Bragging or saying you did something publicly doesn't mean you did it. Actually, it is considered evidence in a court of law. It's considered spontaneous utterance, and it can be used as evidence to lead to a conviction in a court of law. And I'm telling you that as a police officer, as someone who has like recording in my car, every time a convicted felon said anything in the car that was recorded, or even conversations that I had or he had with someone else in front of me, if it's a public place, it's considered spontaneous utterance, and it can be admitted in a court of law. And just seeing the massive amounts of evidence, even just available online for everyone to see, it's to me, I was like, I can't believe conservatives are defending these guys. They must not have seen this. But then you see these guys like Crayon and Nathan posting under every video of these conservative commentators, hey, watch this. Watch this. They're not who they say they are. You shouldn't be defending this. Like they're tons of people, and they're still continuing to defend them. At one point, it has to be, you're not just ignorant anymore. You're being willfully deciding to defend something that's apparently goes against everything you believe in. So anyways, I would go through the evidence, but right now the episode is already longer than it's supposed to be. So I will let you guys go. I just wanted to talk about it because it was something that was being talked about a lot. And I don't want more conservatives fooled by these guys. And I don't want any of my followers and listeners who might not know the details of it to just think, oh, Candace Owens is saying this, so it must be true, or Benny Johnson is saying this, so it must be true. I honestly suggest you look into the guys that I suggested, and you go and look at the evidence that they constantly post publicly as to who Andrew and Tristan Tate are, and that you inform yourself before you go and defend these guys, because anyone linked, attached, defending them is eventually going to get burnt when all of this information is made publicly. It's already public, but made aware on the wider scale where everyone kind of sees it and knows about it, versus right now, not everyone is. I do, because I asked for the information. I informed myself. I wanted to know more before I took a stance on one side or the other. So, but yeah, I will let you guys go. If you don't follow me already, you can do so on all platforms. Nadine G. Ness. I've got a website that's getting built right now. I'm super excited about that. So if you don't subscribe to, you can also set notifications so it lets you know when I go live. Also, big news. Tonight, I'm going on a show. Mark Mitchell, he's having me as a guest. So if you want to go watch me tonight, it will be here. I'm just going to see what time I'm supposed to be on his show. I just forgot like what time it was, like with time zone. So it'll be 8 o'clock, I think, my time, but I'm just going to confirm. Yeah, 8 o'clock my time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's when he does his show. And this is Mark. Here, I'll show you his profile quickly. He's going to send me a link, so I'll be sharing the link. So we're going to be talking about, he did a poll on Americans, what they thought about potentially some of the provinces joining the states, and what that, we're going to talk about the results of that poll. So this is going to be really interesting. I've got some of the results. So that's happening tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Saskatchewan. That's 8 p.m. I think Alberta is 7 p.m. So I'm going on his show. It's on YouTube. I think it's also on Twitter, but we're going to be talking about the results of that poll. I'll be on probably around 8:05 my time, so it'll be 8 o'clock. He starts at 8 o'clock. So anyways, I'm going on his show tonight, and then tomorrow at 12, he's going to be coming on my show as a guest. So he's going to talk about a lot of the polls he's done. He's a pollster that's been quoted by Trump, even at the CPAC. Even I think he might have been quoted last night. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But anyway, so that's happening later. I see that he's live right now, so I'm going to go watch it maybe. But yes, I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. If you're not going to come watch me live tonight, I will be back on tomorrow, probably around 12:30. See you guys. Have a good evening. Good afternoon,